They told me not to follow the stars. They were a trap. But I went anyway, down into the tunnels where no light dares linger. The deeper I walked, the more signs I saw, not of salvation, but of devotion. Devotion twisted by fire, ego, fear, and wine. 12 chambers, 12 leaders, 12 different flavors of divine insanity. I started with the first flame, Aries. Chamber 1, Aries, the cult of eternal fire. The air was hot before I even reached the door. Burnt metal, blood, testosterone. When I entered, Aries stood shirtless in a circle of scorched bones, yelling at a flame that clearly wanted no part of this. They didn't use ancient chants or forgotten rites. No, Aries dared the void to show itself. Their doctrine was simple: scream louder than the voices and punch anything that whispers back. Followers moved like a mosh pit, frenzied, devoted, terrified. One wore a bandage that still smoked. Another was lighting candles with a flamethrower. The leader turned, eyes wild. "If I bleed first," they growled, "I summon faster." I didn't stay long. Fire is not my element, but I left with ash on my hands and adrenaline in my throat. Chamber 2, Taurus, the cult of velvet and vice. I thought the temperature would drop as I moved on. Instead, it thickened, warm, perfumed, and indulgent. The entrance to Taurus's chamber was draped in velvet so thick it muffled my footsteps and, I suspect, judgment. Inside, the walls were candlelit in gold. Plush cushions formed a ritual circle. Devotees lounged like spoiled cats, sipping wine and feeding each other figs. This wasn't a cult. It was a 5-star sin retreat. In the center sat Taurus, draped in a robe that shimmered like wet ink. Rings on every finger, a goat skull set before them, decorated with roses and scented oil. "We worship pleasure," they said, barely glancing up. "We summon only when it suits us, and right now, we're manifesting naps." Every item had weight. Every word was slow. Even the incense burned with purpose, as if rushing would offend the spirits. I watched a follower spend 10 full minutes adjusting the angle of a crystal platter. Taurus didn't need power. They marinated in it. I was offered a drink. I declined. It looked like the kind of wine that makes you forget your birth name. Chamber 3, Gemini, the echo cult. I didn't enter Gemini's chamber so much as get pulled into it, like stepping into a mirror maze with no reflections, only voices. It started with laughter, then contradiction, then argument, all coming from the same place, from the same person. The space split itself. 2 altars, 2 banners, 2 doctrines scrawled side by side, neither matching, both signed by the same hand. Gemini stood, or rather, pulsed, between both sides of themselves. Robes half white, half black, stitched together like a bad compromise. They'd summon a spirit, then debate its moral implications before it even arrived. "I'm the voice of both truth and denial," they said to me, and then corrected themselves immediately. "No, I'm the echo of possibilities. Don't quote me on that." Their followers didn't worship. They argued about meaning, about time, about whether they were even a cult or an emergent ideology experiment. I saw someone take notes, burn them, then cry over the ashes. I asked what they believed. Gemini grinned. Everything and nothing, simultaneously. I left before my brain untethered. Echoes still followed me out. Chamber 4, Cancer, the sanctuary of soft sorrows. The corridor curved downward, damp and moonlit. I felt the weight of emotion long before I arrived. Something was being mourned here. Maybe the past, maybe the future, maybe just the way the incense burned crooked. The chamber was filled with cushions and water bowls. Salt circles doubled as comfort zones. Followers sat in a quiet trance, holding each other, whispering apologies to spirits that hadn't arrived yet. Cancer stood in the center, eyes glassy, arms open, Not like a messiah, but like a friend who never stopped hugging. They wore robes of pale blue, stitched with sigils of memory and protection. A moonstone rested over their heart, pulsing faintly like a second heartbeat. "Our pain is sacred," they whispered to me, brushing their fingers over a weeping candle. "We do not banish spirits. We invite them in. We feed them tea and tell them it's okay to cry." A disciple beside them was openly sobbing over a bowl of moonwater. Another was writing a letter to their inner child's shadow self. There was power here, but it was tender, vulnerable, the kind that could rebuild or completely unravel you. I didn't speak as I left. I couldn't. Something had cracked open inside me. Chamber 5. Leo, the Temple of Divine Magnification. I wasn't sure if I was entering a cult chamber or a stage show. The door swung open on its own, revealing golden torches, velvet drapes, and a floor polished so clean I could see my own fear reflected in it. And then I saw them. Leo, cloaked in radiance, wearing a crown of light that glowed not from magic, but from sheer self-belief. Their arms were outstretched like a deity mid-curtain call. Followers flanked them with hand mirrors angled toward the leader, never away. Here, the rituals were rehearsals. The summoning circles were spotlight platforms. And the chants? They rhymed, on purpose. "I don't worship the divine," Leo told me, holding a microphone that didn't seem necessary. "I am the divine, and my altar is applause." Each follower was part priest, part backup dancer, flawless in devotion, fabulous in delivery. One wore a cloak stitched entirely from fan letters. Another fanned Leo while we spoke. "I summoned a demon once," Leo continued. "It begged to be my manager." I laughed. They didn't. Leaving felt like exiting a concert. My ears rang. My ego felt judged. And yet, a small part of me wanted to go back. Just to bask a little longer. Chamber 6. Virgo, the sanctum of sacred precision. The hallway narrowed into something surgical. Cold. Clean. Every step I took clicked against stone so immaculate I felt like I was contaminating it by breathing. The door didn't creak. It unlocked itself after a checklist was completed. My name, my intention, my star sign, all filed. Inside, Virgo's chamber pulsed with symmetrical energy. Candles burned at precisely the same height. Sigils were drawn with rulers. One misplaced grain of salt could have summoned a lawsuit. Virgo stood at the center in robes that looked ironed with divine fire. No flair, no ego, just order. Their hands moved like calligraphy across an open tome, updating incantations mid-ritual for clarity. They didn't greet me, they assessed me. "You're 3 minutes late," they said flatly. I recalibrated the ritual window accordingly. I watched as they reorganized an altar mid-chant because one skull faced slightly west instead of true north. No one else noticed. Virgo always noticed. Their followers moved with robotic grace, like priests programmed by ancient code. Each step measured, each breath accounted for. "There is no power in chaos," Virgo said, adjusting the angle of a bone dagger. "Only error, and I don't tolerate error." I bowed instinctively. Not out of reverence, out of fear I'd smudge something. Chamber 7. Libra, the Hall of Harmonized Havoc. Approaching Libra's chamber was like walking into a perfume ad during a seance. The scent was floral. The energy was indecisive. The entrance? 2 identical doors. I had to flip a coin to pick one. Inside, everything was mirrored. Symmetry so perfect, it bordered on madness. 2 altars, 2 thrones, 2 completely different cult philosophies scribbled on parchment, in the same handwriting. Libra appeared between them, gliding in robes that shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes held the kind of calm that only forms after hours of internal conflict. "Welcome," they said with a smile. You're just in time to help us settle a vote." The followers stood divided into two camps, each equally fashionable, equally unsure. Debates were ongoing. Which incense best appeased the spirits? Which demon was more misunderstood? Whether the moon looked better in retrograde or rising? Libra moved between them like a referee with a peace treaty in one hand and a mirror in the other. "We summon only with consent," they told me, holding two sacred amulets and visibly struggling to choose. And aesthetic alignment. Every decision required a consensus. Every ritual had a dress code. And the final spell? Cancelled. Because someone couldn't commit to a candle colour. I left before I got voted into another tie. Chamber 8. Scorpio. The cloister of velvet shadows. The path to Scorpio wasn't marked. It simply appeared once I stopped looking. A slit in the stone, veiled by black velvet that drank the torchlight. Crossing the threshold felt like a confession. Inside, silence reigned. Not the peaceful kind, but the loaded quiet before a scream. Candles flickered in red glass skulls. The scent was intoxicating. Clove, blood, and a hint of betrayal. Then I saw them. Scorpio stood still as death, cloaked in obsidian robes that clung like a second skin. Their presence pressed against my chest like a secret I hadn't told yet. They didn't move. They didn't need to. "You're late," they said, though no one had told them I was coming. Followers knelt in silence, eyes closed, lips twitching with unspoken pacts. No one chanted, no one dared. Everything in this space whispered. "Power," Scorpio continued, circling me slowly, "is not taken. It's seduced." I couldn't tell if I was being initiated or interrogated. They ran a finger along my pulse. Chamber 9. Sagittarius. The pilgrimage of sacred rebellion. The map ended before Sagittarius began. Their chamber wasn't a room. It was a moving firelight on the edge of a cliff. No doors, no walls, just a wild open sky that didn't feel like ours anymore. I heard laughter first, unhinged, free, echoing through ancient ruins and psychedelic bonfires. The scent of burning sage mixed with something definitely illegal. Sagittarius danced barefoot through the smoke, cloak flying like a battle flag. Tattoos of forgotten sigils glowed under their skin like constellations high on adrenaline. "Rules!" they shouted mid-cartwheel. I drank mine. There were no followers here, only wanderers, misfits, and people who'd clearly been summoned mid-road trip. Their doctrine wasn't written. It was tattooed across experiences and scribbled on the back of mapeless scrolls. One follower tried to take notes. Sagittarius set the notebook on fire. "We don't document miracles," they grinned. "We become them." They claimed to have summoned chaos itself once, only to ghost it after the third ritual. "Too clingy," they said. There were no endings in this place, only exits. All of them sudden, all of them optional. And as I walked away, I realized I wasn't sure I ever entered to begin with. Chamber X, Capricorn, the sanctum of structured sacrifice. The path to Capricorn's domain was paved in straight lines, obsidian tiles perfectly aligned with no cracks, no chaos, and no room for accidents. As I approached the massive stone door, a voice boomed from unseen glyphs. "State your purpose and confirm you brought a pen." Inside, it felt less like a cult and more like a corporate headquarters for spiritual warfare. A summoning circle was etched into marble, its lines laser-sharp and glowing faintly red. A giant ledger rested on a granite altar. Candles flickered behind glass safety panels. Nothing burned unintentionally here. Capricorn stood at a podium, wearing a tailored cloak that somehow doubled as a blazer. They flipped pages in a leather-bound tome titled "The Demon Deals Quarterly." "We don't do rituals," they said without looking up. "We execute contracts." Their followers were dressed in matching robes with name badges. Everything had a time stamp. One initiate nervously adjusted a bone offering that was 3 degrees off-center. Capricorn fixed it mid-sentence without breaking eye contact. "Ambition isn't a sin," they added, tapping a spreadsheet engraved in stone. "It's the foundation of enlightenment." As I left, I passed a break room with a coffee pot labelled Hellfire Roast. Somehow, it felt comforting. Chamber Ethan, Aquarius, the server of the sacred glitch. No stone marked Aquarius's chamber, just a humming in the walls, a vibration behind the eyes, and a door that scanned my mind for entry credentials I didn't know I had. The room was electric, lit not by flame, but by floating sigils projected through crystalline servers. Cables coiled like vines. Circles weren't drawn in chalk, but coded in shifting, digital runes that pulsed with intention and instability. Aquarius appeared mid-glitch, phasing into view with a synthetic hum, hooded in circuitry, eyes reflecting constellations only seen from inside dreams. "Ritual is obsolete," they declared, adjusting a glowing wrist array. "I decentralized divinity." Their followers were jacked into the void, neural cords woven into their spines. Some hovered inches off the ground. Others typed incantations into glass altars that screamed back in binary. They weren't summoning demons. They were networking with them, creating data exchanges between entities we barely comprehend. Aquarius waved their hand. A holographic sigil unfolded, rotating like a puzzle. "I reverse-engineered prophecy," they said, and gave it an open API. I asked what they believed in. Disruption. Their smile flickered, and so did the walls. Chamber Tween. Pisces. The Temple of the Drowning Veil. There was no door to Pisces' domain, just mist. Thick, glittering, and fragrant with something ancient. I stepped forward and wasn't sure if I was entering a sanctuary or someone else's dream. Time slowed, sound warped. The air pulsed like a lullaby on the edge of grief. Pisces didn't greet me. They felt me. Sitting cross-legged in the center of a floating ritual circle made entirely of water and candlelight, they radiated softness, so profound it felt like drowning in a memory. "This place doesn't exist," they whispered, "until someone needs it." Their followers drifted around the chamber like ghosts on tranquilizers, eyes closed, chanting in languages I felt more than heard. One painted the moon in oils onto a mirror. Another wept into a glowing chalice. Their rituals weren't summoned. They unfolded, like sleep. Every motion was fluid. Every invocation sounded like poetry written mid-tear. "I once dreamed of a god," Pisces told me, then woke up as its echo. Reality bent here. Or maybe it simply gave up. I lost time. I may have confessed something. Or everything. As I left, the mists folded back over the entrance, and I wondered, was I ever really there? The circle closes 12 cults, 12 echoes of madness, devotion, and divine delusion. I came seeking insight from the stars. I left carrying 12 curses I didn't know I had the words for. Each sign leads their own path into the dark, some with fire, others with velvet, some with mirrors, some with silence. But they all whisper the same secret. You were never just observing. You were called. So, tell me, traveler, which cult called to you? Which one already feels like home? Drop your sign in the comments below. Subscribe if your candle stayed lit through the whole descent. And remember, just because they walk the left-hand path doesn't mean they walk alone.